So I don't know if you guys have seen this story. It says case of a brain dead pregnant woman kept on life support in Georgia raises tricky questions. Please note they do not say her name, and I've noticed throughout the stories they've neglected to say her name because no one's associating the issue with her name like we did with like a George Floyd or a Tamir Rice. And I think we should start saying her name, right? So I have it here in my title. Adriana Smith, real person, real mother, real nurse, real contributor to society, real daughter, somebody's girlfriend, somebody's like, she's a real person. She's not a made up, like she's not fiction. And she is a real person who really died and is being kept alive, brain dead, with a baby growing inside of her, a fetus growing inside of her, because of the heartbeat law in Georgia. So just remember, right? Like, she is a real person. She did exist. She had a whole life that, and she was planning for a future life. She was pregnant. She had a family. She was making more of a family. So, she's a real person. And I think, what's sad is like when you read the story, her picture isn't even the first part of this AP story, right? You have to scroll, right? Look at this. Where is her picture? Wait, is her picture? Oh, her picture's not even in the article. Oh my God, I didn't even realize. That's so dehumanizing. That's so effed up. Her picture's not even in this whole article. My bad. See how horrible this is? Oh my God. I'm shocked, real-time shocked, bros. But this is what I mean to say. How dehumanizing to this woman who truly did exist, right? So let's skip to the video because they will show you her picture and we'll get a deeper insight into this story. We're going to watch 2 videos with interviews by her mother that I think helps us really understand this story.
New developments right now in the case of a pregnant woman being kept alive.
Look at her. Beautiful, real person, existed, no longer exists, but her baby is technically in middle of developing and they're hoping the baby makes it to term and they're going to deliver the baby via C-section. But right now it's not looking good for her or the baby. And her family is in a deep mourning process. But keep in mind, this is like a really scary precedent to set. And it would be different if Adriana, before she passed, Adriana Smith, before she passed, she had said, keep me alive, even if, right, that would have been her right. But because we don't know that, it's really difficult that the family doesn't have a choice. So again, I support educating our population to say before these things happen, have it in your will or in some sort of documentation or in some sort of proof that maybe this is your wish, but what if it's not your wish, right? Okay.
On life support, 11 Alive first told you about Adriana Smith last week. She went to the hospital 8 weeks into her pregnancy, complaining of a headache, and just hours later, doctors declared her brain dead. It's a story that's making headlines all around the globe, sparking debates over Georgia's heartbeat law.
Tonight, our Cody Alcorn spoke exclusively with Smith's mother again about the emotional toll of this pregnancy, and she says the state left them no choice but to continue. He's live now from Emory University Hospital in Midtown. Cody, we know this is a situation that has really been taxing for this family.
It really has, Jennifer and Ron. Adriana was moved here to Emory Midtown on Tuesday. She's expected to remain on life support through August when doctors plan to deliver her baby.
August, bro. August. I don't even know the science behind this. I'm so uneducated in this regard. Can a baby develop properly over time? Now, you're going to hear from the mother that there's already been complications with the birth PS, so it's not looking good. But again, there's so much at stake here, more than we could even imagine. But let the mother speak for herself.
Baby by C-section. 30-year-old Adriana Smith is 22 weeks pregnant.
But she's not there. She's not there. But the baby's there.
April Newkirk says her daughter was declared brain dead on February 19th. Adriana was 8 weeks pregnant.
We wanted to know if she was to abort, would she have a chance at her life? And they said there was no chance or no hope.
In Georgia, the state's heartbeat law bans abortions after a fetal heartbeat is detected.
So at that point, we continued with the pregnancy that we didn't have a choice or a say about. And I just want to be clear on something. We want her to have her baby. We want her life to continue throughout her children. But at the same time, to see her lay there like that for that length of time, the grieving process for us, it can't even start because every time we go, we grieve and we hurt. And it's just unreal. It's unreal for anyone to go through this.
April says they named her daughter's
Hold on.
baby Chance.
Because we feel like he's getting a second chance. Listen, I think remember this woman is under an insane amount of scrutiny. That everyone is calling her heartless for even thinking about aborting the baby. And this plays into that larger conversation we were having around like eugenics and pro-life, pro-choice talk. At the end of the day, these things are all very different and complicated, but it wouldn't be, I think, cruel to have that abortion. But also, I think in some ways she has to be careful about how she talks about it, because if she's under threat, people are watching her and going to scrutinize this mother, harder than anybody else because she's the face of it right now. And they're going to say that it's interesting that the boyfriend hasn't been interviewed in these two videos I have. He's not in it, but she is. But keep in mind, that's probably because she's in charge of her medical versus the boyfriend who's unmarried, right? But she has to deal with the backlash of people saying, wow, you want to kill your own grandkid? Because these pro-lifers are ruthless. So remember that she is having to be very political in this conversation. Who knows how she's expressing her grief in private? But I think that she's doing the best she can with a very, very difficult situation. And that's really what this is about. How difficult is this situation? We can't even comprehend it, right?
Because to me, he's getting a second chance.
Despite his mom's condition,
The baby is the right weight, a little bit over, which is a good sign. He has his legs, his toes, his limbs. Heartbeat is good and strong. It's just maybe because of the loss of consciousness with my daughter, the lack of oxygen that the baby didn't get. So that's where the cerebellum comes into place.
baby Chance's future is still uncertain.
So the journey is for baby Chance to survive, and in whatever condition God allows him to come here in, we're going to love him just the same, and we're going to embrace him.
I believe that. We'll see in a different interview where she talks about it a little differently. I also think it's okay to be scared that the baby will come out disabled. Not because you're a bad person if you're disabled, but because how scary is it that because of the way your daughter died, you're impacted in womb, and then you come into the world with a dead mother, and you come into the world disabled because of the way that the state operated or didn't care for your mother. Right. And again, I know these conversations are really sensitive, and I don't want disabled people to feel like you're not worthy. That's not the conversation we're having right now. The conversation we're having is that this is a huge, very reasonably emotional situation, and you will never understand the burden of it unless you've been there. And even though I've never been in this situation, I feel like just to try to sympathize or empathize with it would be so important right now, because it is beyond frustrating to be in this situation. Right. And sometimes you've seen TV shows have this sort of conversation. I don't know if you've ever seen, there's an episode of I think it was SVU, where the girl was in a coma and somebody had assaulted her and she got pregnant, and the mom saw this as a miracle. But at the end of the day, like, your daughter didn't consent to making that baby and she was assaulted. And in this situation, thank God it wasn't that, right? But I'm just trying to use it to have a larger contextual conversation. Sometimes I think people value bringing a baby into the universe a little bit too much over the life of the person that's in existence. And I think that we should have larger conversations about that. I don't think it's wrong for you to see the value of that baby or that fetus or that growing energy. I think it's maybe sometimes it takes a wise and sort of a situation where discernment is required for you to make a better decision in the long run, right? James, welcome to Memberships. Happy to have you here.
Adriana does have a 7-year-old son. His name is Chase, and he has no idea what is happening. He still thinks his mom is just asleep.
Ooh! We got to explain it to that baby. Somebody has to sit down with that baby, and we need to explain to that baby that your mom's not coming home. You know, that's really devastating. Like, think about having to explain it to that child And we have got to sit down. Like, I don't want him at 7 years old to jump on the internet and see his mother's story being talked about. Somebody needs to sit down with that baby before he sees it on the internet, before his friends talk about it, right? He's too old at this point. Somebody needs to sit down with a therapist, or maybe somebody does need to explain it to them. Like, you know, that kid deserves to know if his mom's coming home or not. And I do think this is an experiment. I do think they are testing the bounds. I do think that they are seeing how far they can get, what they can do with our bodies after we die. And I think with what's inside of our bodies, remember that abortion laws, because the word abortion means the expelling of the fetus or things. So like from my understanding, abortion even is applied to stillbirths when the baby is pushed out, basically, or taken out. So we have to be very careful with terminology here, that, you know, we have to be very, I think as laymen who aren't in the law, who aren't medical professionals, we have to be very careful about the way we think we're advocating for policy, because we might be impacting lives that we don't process. Same thing with, you know, trans kids. You might think you're just protecting a trans kid from getting surgery, which never happens, by the way. But what you're not taking into consideration is all the ways those trans kids need gender affirming care that fall under these laws that you are pushing, these policies you are pushing, that end up hurting people in the long run, people you didn't even realize you were hurting. Because it always sounds good when they present it, but when you dig into how it's applied, you have to realize, like, that's why in America we try our hardest to sort of protect free speech or protect certain things, because even though we're unhappy seeing how people utilize it, the consequences might be worse. And so we're always trying to think of that, right?
Now, as you mentioned, this whole case has sparked a conversation. It has sparked debate about the gray areas of the state's heartbeat law. And as reported last week, when I first sat down with April, she believes the heartbeat law needs to be re-examined and changed.
Cody, certainly a very difficult situation all the way around there. Thank you so much for bringing us that update tonight. Meanwhile, in a statement released last week from Georgia's Attorney General Chris Carr, his office said in part, there is nothing in the Life Act that requires medical professionals to keep a woman on life support after brain death. Removing life support is not an action with the purpose to terminate a pregnancy.
That sounds very much like the Catholic loophole about ectopic pregnancies. I think I've told you this before. I asked a priest in my life who is one of the canon lawyers for the church, what is the church's legal standing on ectopic pregnancies? And he said the church gets around it by, let's say the baby is ectopic in the fallopian tube, removing that part of the fallopian tube, which, yes, terminates a woman's ability to make a baby in the future, but allows the woman to survive the ectopic pregnancy while getting rid of the ectopic pregnancy without committing a targeted abortion. So, you know, not my favorite, but hey, so that's kind of what's happening here, is that even though the consequence is the termination of the fetus, what we're really doing is taking this body off life support because this woman deserves to rest. Okay? Like, this woman deserves to rest, right? Okay, now let me show you this next video, which I think is important for context. Same story, different interviewers.
30-year-old Adriana Smith was about 9 weeks pregnant when she started having bad headaches in February.
Enough to know that something was wrong.
April Newkirk says her daughter went to Northside Hospital for help.
They gave her some medication, but they didn't do any tests. They didn't do any CT scans. If they did, they would have caught it.
The next morning, Adriana's boyfriend noticed something was terribly wrong.
She was gasping for air in her sleep, gargling. More than likely it was blood. She was taken to Emory, Decatur, and then she was transferred here.
To Emory University Hospital, where Adriana worked as an RN. Unfortunately, there was nothing doctors could do.
They did a CT scan and she had blood clots all in her head. So they had asked me if they could do a procedure to relieve them, and I said yes. And then they called me back and they said that they couldn't do it.
Doctors declared Adriana brain dead.
So I feel as if somebody dropped the ball at the hospitals, and her boyfriend asked, please keep her. If she was kept at the hospital, we wouldn't be here.
Because of Georgia's heartbeat bill, which bans abortions after a fetal heartbeat is detected, her family says they weren't given any say in what happens next.
It's torture for me. I come here and I see my daughter breathing by the ventilator, but she's not there. And I'm touching her. And she has a son who I bring to see her.
Now, 21 weeks pregnant, her baby's health uncertain.
She's pregnant with my grandson, but my grandson may be blind, may not be able to walk, wheelchair bound. We don't know if he'll live once she has him.
A situation she says no one should be forced into.
It should have been left up to the family because I'm in my 50s, her dad is in his 50s, so we're going to have the responsibility with her partner to raise her sons, you know? And I'm not saying that we would have chose to terminate her pregnancy. What I'm saying is we should have had a choice. We should have had a choice.
Thanks for watching.
That's okay. Something so important here is that they should have had a choice. And the fact that they didn't have a choice is the dilemma. And yes, she was a nurse, chat. She was a nurse. They went to the same hospital she worked at, from my understanding, right? They just said that. And the problem is that I think we all downplay our symptoms for a lot of reasons. Like I'm sure like you, like me, like we, you know, there's that meme that my community is always sharing where it's like, you literally are dead and at a funeral and your doctor shows up and goes, your labs came back fine, right? That's like the joke. But the truth is like, we're not as advanced with medicine as we think. We don't have the proper resources and we keep taking money away from research. This administration continues to take money away from literal research that we need. That's why when Trump went up and made it one of his initial speeches after winning the election, he said something about trans mice. Like, oh, they're experimenting on trans mice. They're experimenting on mice, which I know is not vegan, to cure cancer. It's for cancer research. But see how Trump gets there and goes, can you believe they've got money going towards trans mice? And his viewers are like, that's crazy. Wow, that's nuts. These mice were meant for cancer research. So, you know, I know it's not very vegan, but the point is that we need to be aware of how uneducated everybody is. And two, why, again, and stay with me here, sometimes I do ask people like, why are you having a baby in 2025? Not because I don't think you should have a baby, but because I'm wondering if you've asked yourself, are you engaging in a community that will support you? Are you in a state that will support you when you are medically impaired? Will there be the right resources for you? And have you know what I mean? I'm not saying you shouldn't have a baby. I'm saying, do you know why you're having a baby? Do you know why you're putting yourself in that medical situation? One of my deepest, darkest fears is having my parents in charge of my medical rights or my medical choices. Not because I don't think my parents would make really good choices for a lot of the situations, because I think they would. I've seen them do that. I just think with certain circumstances in relation to pregnancy, I can't trust my parents because they're pro-life. That I'm glad I married into a liberal family who are pro-choice. You know what I mean? So again, I'm not saying don't have a baby. I'm just saying, why are we having a baby? Just so you know why, right? I also, I think this also does play into that larger conversation. I know it's very sensitive about what we covered on my birthday a while back about the eugenics TikTok trending, right? That this grandma might come under scrutiny for saying that, look, this baby might come out disabled in a way that we didn't prepare for because of malpractice in the hospital. And it's not that we wouldn't love this baby no matter how it came out, because we would. But don't you think that that's something that we should feel a little bit upset about? Am I allowed to feel a little bit upset that this baby who would have come out perfectly healthy in a, whatever perceived way we have is now at risk because of the doctors? Like, can we not hold both emotions at once, please? Where we dignify the life of the disabled and we also mourn the fact that this was so unnecessary, which is, again, the conversation we're trying to have as a larger community around preventative care. Preventative care and agency over your body, right? So again, I'm not saying don't have a baby. I'm not saying disability is bad. I am saying that we have to be more nuanced and wise and use discernment. And when we are engaging and bringing a new consciousness into the universe, that of all the things you should be, more prepared about, should probably be about bringing a consciousness into the universe. Not that you will, and I radically accept that most people will not do their due diligence, and I don't think you're bad. I think you're very human, and humans are going to human. I just think it's very human for us not to think about what it means to really make a baby, especially in a world that has given you a script about why you should be making a baby, right? So I encourage you to deconstruct that script and to consider what it means to really make a baby in 2025. Not, again, making the prescription that you shouldn't make a baby. I'm just saying you should know why you're making a baby.